Welcome back. So I decided to wear my Le Cordon Bleu apron today because actually it was a pretty great experience. We had the opportunity to go to Le Cordon Bleu cooking school in Paris, summer of 2019. We didn't make Cornish Game Hens, which is what's on the menu today. We made macaroons, but it was a super fun experience, and I actually won Best in Class for that particular day's activity. It was super fun. Very hands-on. Each pair, each partnership got the opportunity to make a batch of chocolate macaroons, which we brought home with us. And somehow we had to feed to the ducks because seriously, there were too many macaroons for us to eat in a one-week trip. So we are making keto, paleo-friendly Cornish Game Hens today. And I did some prep work before you showed up. We've got our Cornish Game Hens here. We've got our baking dish all greased, oiled, ready to go. I've already pre-cut my onion. I'm going to add mushrooms even though that's not in the recipe because I have some in the fridge and they need to be eaten up. I've got some fresh parsley chopped and celery chopped. We've got fresh thyme and a bunch of seasonings. So you ready to get started? All right, so the instructions tell us to preheat the oven to 425, which I've already done that as well. Grease my pan, and then we're going to cut our hens in half. So just make sure that you want to cut them perpendicular to the wings, I guess, so straight down the spine, in other words. So I've sharpened my knife. This is a really cool Wüsthof knife from Germany that I'm using today. And whenever I do something like this, I always take time to sharpen my knife before I get started, just to make sure that it does its job really well. And that was pretty darn easy. So there's one half. And again, pull your legs out and go straight down the middle. Watch your fingers. Move them out of the way. I did cut myself last week, I guess it was. My finger's still healing. That's what happens when you keep your knives really sharp. You can tend to cut yourselves. Okay, so we've got two halves there. We want to make sure that we are salt and peppering the hens inside and out. So let me get some wipes. I've got some antibacterial wipes here, so that I can touch my spices without getting chicken stuff all over them. I'm going to do salt and pepper on the outsides, and then I'm going to put salt heavily on the inside. So I'm trying to touch the hens with my left hand so that I can touch my spices with my right hand and not cross-contaminate anything. Salt and pepper. Nice and good. I'm going to turn them over and do the inside. Salt, only on the inside. And then I've already pre-prepared my paprika and garlic salt. So I'm going to do, actually I think I'll use a little bit of a spoon so that I don't over season part of it. And this was a pretty generous helping. I was almost actually surprised that they had suggested this much. But 2 teaspoons of both paprika and garlic salt. They'll be super flavorful as a result. And of course you can always add a little more pepper on top before you bake if needed. They're already so pretty. I'm going to get under my wings a little bit. because I've got plenty of seasoning here, so why not? All right, I'll set that aside for now. All right, I've got on my stove here 3 tablespoons of butter already melted. It was part of my prep. I just got everything actually started. And so I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit on that. And I'm going to start adding my vegetables in. I'm going to start with my onion, which I chopped finely. And I prefer sweet onions. I pretty much anymore don't even bother buying other types of onions because I find that I don't like them. So if a recipe calls for purple, red, I just buy what I know I like and what I think my husband will eat. He's not a picky eater, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't particularly like purple, red onions, and pretty much will pick them out of anything. So what's the point, right, if he's going to pick them out? The sweet onions, he doesn't complain at all. So we're both happy in that regard. So I'm turning my temperature up just a little bit, a little over medium to get our onions going. I'm going to let them cook for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'm going to add the celery. All right. All right, I'm going to add my celery. This is calling for about 3/4 of a cup of celery, which is about 2 medium stalks. And I'm going to go ahead and throw my mushrooms in as well. Remember, the recipe didn't call for mushrooms, but I figure a recipe like this, whatever you like, whatever you happen to have on hand, that works well. So similar to, this is basically a stuffing with Cornish Game Hens instead of like a turkey or something. So if I would put it in a traditional turkey stuffing, why wouldn't I put it in this? And mushrooms is one of those. I just sliced a couple of the bigger ones in half. And that's going to take a few minutes to saute down and get rid of the moisture from the mushrooms as well. Okay, I think we're done pretty well, actually. We've got things softened up quite a bit. The mushrooms have shrank quite a great deal. And now we're going to add a cauliflower rice. So remember, this is keto or paleo friendly, so there'll be no breadcrumbs added to this particular stuffing. But all I'm using here is an organic riced cauliflower. So this is just a large package that I purchased at Costco. And it had 4 1-pound bags within it, my last one. I cooked it in the microwave for about 7 minutes, which is what the ingredients, or which is what the instructions said to do as far as cooking that cauliflower rice. And I'm just going to dump it here in my pan. I'm going to turn off my heat while I mix this in, because I'm also going to be adding in my parsley and thyme. Here's my parsley, it's fresh. My thyme is also fresh. So I think I'll just take a couple of sprigs, and if you didn't know to take thyme off the stem, you can just pull it in the opposite direction that it grows, and then you'll have some little sprigs of thyme in your dish. The recipe specifically asks for 2 tablespoons of finely chopped. Again, I'm just pulling it the opposite direction off the stem, and then breaking some of the bigger pieces that come off into smaller pieces. Typically, the way you use fresh herbs versus dried is you can get away with using fewer dried herbs than fresh, and that is because when it's dried, it shrinks. So it isn't that you are using less flavor, but you need less herb in general just because of the size of it. Okay. My dried sage, if I were using fresh, it would suggest 2 tablespoons. So that's a great example of 2 teaspoons dry or 2 tablespoons fresh. And I think that's a little generous, so I'm going to do 1 actually, which is a little bit more in the neighborhood of how much thyme I put in as well. And I'm just mixing that in. So again, this is my stuffing mixture of cauliflower, rice, onion, celery, mushroom, and then my herbs. And this was sauteed originally in butter. Can't go wrong with that. So the directions say to put the stuffing mixture in the bottom of my baking dish. So I'm just going to spoon that in real quickly. I can't get over how good the dogs have been while I've been recording this. Usually when I have to do teaching videos, I don't know, people drive by or they get all excited thinking my husband's on his way home, and of course he's not because their schedule is usually ahead of his. And now we're going to add our hens skin side up. So I've got them here on my cutting board. Skin side up. There's 1 half, 2 halves. Let me get the other 2. 1 half, and the second one. Now, I still had a little bit of the paprika and garlic salt left over, so I'm going to just sprinkle that a little bit over everything and use it up. because chances are I'm not going to use it for anything else. So it's on my hens and on my cauliflower rice and on my veggies, or not at all. All right, so we're going to cover this tightly with foil before we roast it for about 45 minutes at 425 degrees. For another 15-20 minutes, you can uncover and bake a little bit longer. If you need to add some additional butter, I recommend ghee butter. If you didn't see my previous video, this is the ghee butter that I like to use. It's flavored with pink Himalayan salt, and I'll add some of that to the stuffing if it's getting dry. But your hens might keep it perfectly moist all on its own, so just keep your eye on that. Just be sure to let sit about 10 minutes before serving. So we'll take a look in a little over an hour and see what it looks like. All right, so I've just taken this out of the oven, and there's plenty of moisture in there, so I'm not going to be adding any supplemental butter or anything like that. All I've done is taken the foil off, and now I'm going to put it back in the oven for another 15 minutes. All right, buzzer just went off, so let's check it out. I'm going to take a look. It's absolutely perfect. But just to be sure, let's get my meat thermometer out. It's registering at 189. I think they're done. And then you'll have to check out my blog or my Instagram page and see how I played it. Have a great evening.